So this is a beginner's guide to playing this arrangement of the Interstellar main theme, which in this particular arrangement by Atlantic Lights has been greatly simplified, but nonetheless, there are some things in here that you can learn directly at the piano before you really dive into how exactly to play everything, and make it sound the way that you're used to hearing it. So let's just start at the beginning. We're going to have a quick conversation about the time signature, and that's the fact that it says 6/8. So I'll dive more into the theory behind this a little later, but for now, I just need you to know that in terms of the music, we're going to be counting, instead of counting to 4 like you might be used to, we're going to be counting to 6. So every time you see a measure, it's important to know that you're going to be counting to 6 using eighth notes. So that's why you're seeing a lot of eighth notes. There's not a lot of quarter notes. And really, it's pretty straightforward in this song. You see, you've got these 2 sets of 3. And so when you're working with those 2 sets of 3, you're going to be counting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Very straightforward. Just keep that in mind as we go and you're looking at the music or you're referencing the music, that you're always going to be counting in cycles of 6 eighth notes on every measure. Okay, so that's just a start. Let's go ahead and dive into what to do at the piano. So at the beginning, what I'd like you to do is just think about 2 sets of notes. And the sets of notes, we're going to call them chords, but you're not necessarily going to be playing them like a chord, although you might think of them as a broken chord. You've learned chords like a C chord, right? And a C chord is a set of 3 notes. We call it a triad. So in this case, instead of playing it like a triad, where you play all 3 notes at once, or a block chord, we're going to be playing it more like a broken chord. And that means that we might play 1 note at a time. And so the sequence might look like this, where we play the bottom, and then the middle, and then the top note. But it can actually be in any order. I could start on the top note, and then come down. Right? And in this case, your chord is not a C chord. The 3 notes that we're going to be working with are almost a C chord. This top note is going to be an A. All right, now, to make this a little more natural in our hand, what I recommend you do is to play this middle note with your second finger. So you may be used to doing 5 fingers over 5 notes. This is really going to have like a 6th note here. And the more natural thing for your hand to do is to separate between the thumb and the rest of the fingers, right? So these 4 fingers are moving over and your thumb is staying on the C, right? So I'm just going to demonstrate that. I've got these 4 fingers. I'm just sliding them over. So I've got a gap right here between my first and my second finger. All right, so that's our position. And then the chord is just the bottom and the top note. And then because my second finger is on the E, that's my middle note. And here is the broken chord pattern that you're going to play. You're going to play top to bottom, middle to bottom, and then again, middle to the bottom. Remember, we're doing this in cycles of 6 counts. So that would be a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. All right. But if you can just remember the pattern, it's going to go top to bottom. And then the middle to the bottom is going to be twice. All right. So that's our pattern. That's our chord number 1. And then chord number 2 is this. Now, to get from chord number 1 to chord number 2, I want you to notice that the middle note, E, is the same. So when that happens, and we've got these 2 notes that are just sort of sliding over, I'm using this middle note, my second finger, is sort of a pivot point. That way I don't have to reposition my whole hand. I don't have to pick up my hand. I can just keep that as sort of an anchor, right? A pivot point. And I'm just going to slide my other fingers up next to my thumb here. And then my 5th finger is also sliding up to the B. So this is chord number 2. And I'm going to approach it the same way. I'm going to play it as a broken chord. And I'm going to go top to bottom. and then middle to bottom twice. If I count it to 6, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. All right, so chord 1. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Chord 2. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So when you practice this, practice doing just the chord as a block first, and then train your fingers to move to that next chord. Just get used to going back and forth between these. You can almost do it with your eyes shut so you can feel it. All right, you're just training your hand to find the position without really having to think about it. What you're going to be thinking about is that when you're in that position, you have a pattern to execute. Top to bottom, middle to bottom, and again, middle to bottom. You can think 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We're going to change. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And so you can actually practice that by going from one chord to the next, just keeping your count to 6 happening 2 times, right? So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And you want to develop this to where you start to speed it up. Right? And just get it to where it's very smooth. Okay, so that's the right hand at the beginning. This is actually beginning not at the start of the song, but here in measure number 5. So I've kind of bracketed that. I've just done those 2 measures, measure 5 and measure 6. So here's the top to bottom, and then here's the middle to the bottom twice. There you go. So there's your 3 sets of 2 or 6 counts, right? And then the same thing happens on the next chord, only now we're going from the B to the D, and then it's, again, middle to the bottom twice. Okay, so that's the first part of your practice. In the next video, we'll skip on down to the next few measures on the next line.